Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Cascadia Landmarks from Flatout Games. Cascadia Landmarks is the expansion to Cascadia from Flatout Games, distributed by AEG. This review will assume you understand and know how to play Cascadia. If you don't, you can check out my review, a gameplay, a comparison. I have a whole bunch of content on Cascadia, as do a dozen other channels, if not, probably several dozen. Several dozen other channels have content on Cascadia. But Cascadia Landmarks is an expansion, and I'm going to talk about what the expansion adds to the game, what it adds to the experience, and then my thoughts and opinions on that expansion, again, assuming you know how to play Cascadia. The very 30 to 60 second notes on Cascadia is a tile laying game, which you're going to be gathering tiles along with various wild animals that you're going to be going onto those tiles in order to efficiently score as efficiently as possible based on the cards in play. For each of the 5 species of animals, you're going to have a card in play. These are all the cards over here. You're going to have one card for each of the 5 species in play, each of them giving you a scoring combination of how those animals score. You're going to place those onto the various tiles, building out your network, having 20 total animals and 23 landscapes by the end of the game, and then scoring for the animals, any remaining pine cones, as well as for your largest corridor of each tile, of each terrain type. Each of the terrain types, for the largest section you have of each, you'll get a point, and so you're going to score for all of those, and that's basically how you play Cascadia. So tiling, grab tiles, try to match them up, try to score as efficiently as possible. That's the basic Cascadia game. Now, Cascadia Landmarks adds a few things. The first thing it's going to add is more tiles. There are simply going to be more tiles in the game, which gives you some degree of just more variety, but also gives you fun little tiles like this. This is going to be another pine cone scoring tile, but this one has 3 terrain types on it, which is new. Usually Cascadia has 1 terrain type, or like 1 terrain type like this, for example, or alternatively 2 terrain types like this. This is the first time we're seeing a 3 terrain type tile, and it's going to also give you a pine cone as you try to place it into your grid and get the seasonal token. I think it's called pine cones. They might be called something else. Nature tokens? Maybe they're called nature tokens. But you'll earn those as well throughout the course of the game. So there's around 40 or so new additional tiles being added to the mix. That's going to be the first thing it adds. The second thing is it adds 5 new starting tiles over here. These are going to be your starting tiles that start you off in the game. You're going to start with this guy over here, and then across the course of the game, every turn you're drafting a tile and a creature token, which means we're going to end with 23 terrains and 20 creature tokens across the course of the game. Cascadia Landmarks is going to give you 5 more of those. 5 new ones over there with some slightly different terrain configurations. So far, these are just extra, more stuff. Nothing that will really enhance or change your gameplay in any way. Maybe these 3 tiles over here, maybe a drop. We can figure that out. But then past that, it's going to add animal variety. So over here we have all these animal cards over here, and the base Cascadia is going to give you, I think, around 4 or 5 cards for each animal type, and the expansion is going to add 3 new ones for each type. In other words, 15 new cards, and mathematically a whole lot more possible configurations of how to play Cascadia. So if you're getting bored of the 5 bear cards you have in the game, well, there's 3 new ones to mix in different ways to try to score things, and then of course different ways to combine the old with the new. So again, if you've played this game enough that you're getting a little tired of all these, there's just more cards being added to the mix, which means a whole lot more combinations. The next thing the expansion adds, and part of the reason why we have new tiles over here, is going to be the game now plays 5 to 6 players instead of just 1 to 4. So if you want to play this game at higher player counts, you can do so, and more importantly, and I mean this so badly, more importantly than adding a 5 and 6 player mode, they also add a variant to keep the game time at a reasonable length. In other words, sure, you can play Cascadia at 5 to 6 players. You have more tiles, you have more tokens in the bag, you have more starting tiles, you are good to go. But that will also slow down your game, and so they add a new variant on how to play with 5 to 6 players, a variant you are welcome to include at any player count. It adds, well, we'll talk about the opinions of it soon, but a variant you're welcome to include at any player count, but it's going to speed up the game a bit by, instead of drafting for the 20 tiles across the course of the game, you will only draft 15, and instead you will have your own private pool of tiles, of landscape tiles and creature tiles that you can slowly move to your tableau at different points throughout the course of the game. Managing your own timing of it is up to you, but the important part is you do so in between turns. So it effectively removes a quarter of the decisions you're making on your turn and instead puts a quarter of those on other people's turns, which means a 5 to 6 player game will feel more like a 3 to 4 player game, and a 4 player game will feel like a 3 player game, and work your way downwards to a certain extent. There's only so much you can really do with that, but basically it makes it so you can play Cascadia with 5 to 6 players and adds a variant so it keeps the game time reasonable instead of just having it drag on forever as you play. And then the last thing Cascadia Landmarks, or second last thing, I'm saving the last as we'll save the last soon enough, but the second last thing Cascadia Landmarks adds is the landmarks itself. I've been saving this for second last for a reason, because this is the namesake of the expansion. The landmarks are going to be this whole tableau of cards over here, and what you're going to do with these cards, you're going to take one of these cards, let's put that back in play, is you're going for each type of terrain, you're going to put out cards in play equal to the number of players, as well as those tokens. Those tokens over there are going to be put onto a player's own grid when they have a corridor of size 5. Corridors are going to be the types of terrain. So for example, if we look at this tile over here, we have a corridor, 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 and corridor. If we add this over here, we are expanding the water corridor. If we add this over here, we technically now have a larger water corridor, but we have 2 separate forest corridors. These are not yet connected, and now they are connected. But now we have 2 water corridors instead. As you build out corridors in the game, or specifically, also we had this situation over here, as we build this out right now, we're going to go ahead, and as soon as we add our 5th tile, making it a size 5 corridor, you will take the matching terrain type and put it onto the tile you just placed, and then take one of the cards in play. So let's remove these 2 cards over here, and instead put down these cards over here. If we had these, we would have these in play. In a 2-player game, we'd have these. We would take one of these, put it onto the tile, which locks off the tile. You can no longer place something there, which is slowly going to diminish your choices of what you can place on the board. But you will get one of these. This one is a straight up 3 points, and this one lets you add 2 to the size of the largest corridor when scoring, giving you a minimum of 2 extra points, and possibly achieving various other things in the game. And so that's going to be what the landmarks add. They give you tokens you can add onto your terrain whenever you hit a size 5 corridor of each of the terrain types. You're going to have cards in play that are going to give you different things you're trying to go for, and it's first come, first serve, in the sense that you're trying to choose the right corridors that will maximize your score in the game. Now, as you play the corridors, you are going to slowly reduce your options. Previously in regular Cascadia, at any given point, you have 3 open spots to place animals. In Cascadia Landmarks, you will start the game with an extra pine cone tile, which is going to go ahead and give you a 4th spot. So you start the game with 4 spots, but as you place corridors, you are slowly reducing your options, which means you can either just place fewer animals, return them to the bag as you would have placed them in order to keep your options open, or you can just operate with less freedom as you continue to play. So you start with a more freedom, but it will compress as you play, and you can choose between the points or the freedom and try to figure out what makes the most sense for your puzzle. And then the last thing Cascadia Landmarks adds, and the reason why I want to talk about the landmarks first, is going to be Cascadia Landmarks adds a new solo mode, or more solo plays to the game, or I should say more than just solo plays, challenges and solo plays that you can do with any number of players, either solo or not. So you have a whole new set of achievements, a new set of stuff you can earn. In basic Cascadia, you have these ways of trying to not just play the game, but get specific things in the rulebook. And if you're bored of that, if you've already gone through those, if you've won them all, you have a whole new set over here to earn in Cascadia Landmarks, as well as a new set of solo or multiplayer challenges that you can earn throughout the use of the new landmarks. So again, if you're just looking for that variety, that additional content, you have all that in the form of more solo content, more challenges, more multiplayer challenges. However you want to approach it, there's more of that. And that's what Cascadia Landmarks is adding, which means it's time to talk about my general opinion of the expansion. Let's start with the basics and get the easier things out of the way. The additional tiles over here, that's okay. I don't mind having more flexibility, more options. It doesn't feel like it's anything drastic. Past those 3 terrain tiles, those feel like a little bit interesting. Everything else is, I barely notice that it exists. It exists, but I barely notice it exists. Not a problem, not a good thing, not a bad thing. Similarly, these 5 starting tiles over here, the additional 5 starting tiles, I mean, it's nice. I don't mind more variety, but I can't say I ever looked at the starting tiles of Cascadia and thought, wow, I'm getting a little bored of those. Nor have I played with the new ones and thought, wow, I've solved my problem. So more is good, but not really a pro or con in particular. The 5 to 6 player mode, I'm kind of mixed on. I'm happy it exists. I'm very happy it exists. I think that player freedom and flexibility is a good thing. Even more so when you add an aspect to it so that the speed of the game, the length of the game is managed around it. And I think the decision space you have with that little variant of lining up tiles of your own little personal pool to play with, I think it's a good, fun way to play that I'd consider even playing at lower player counts. It adds a little bit of rules, maintenance, and overhead, but it does so by speeding up the game and giving you some interesting decisions to make along the way. So I don't know how I feel about it in combination with the various challenges of the game. That could be a pro or a con against that. But in terms of the basic play of it, I like the fact that they're adding player flexibility, or more enhanced player flexibility, and speeding up the game. The only reason I'm mixed on it is, practically speaking, I don't imagine I'm ever going to really play Cascadia with 5 or 6 players. Usually if I'm heading towards that player count, there are other kinds of games I'd play, even if Cascadia Landmarks does do a good job of accommodating that. So I'm glad it exists for other players. I don't know if I strongly benefit from the 5 to 6 player mode changes. The additional cards. I think the additional cards over here, the scoring cards for the various animal types, that to me is straight up good. Cascadia Landmarks to me is almost worth getting just for that alone because of the additional variability it's going to give to your experience. I've played Cascadia Landmarks a lot. I've not only reviewed this game and done a playthrough and done a play this not that, I have also done a full 12x12 review, which is where I've played the game, where a review format where I've played a game in every different configuration or style or approach. Cascadia is a game that I've given easily 30 to 40 plays of, and that means I've seen a lot of the combinations. And so more cards to me is a good thing. I am happy that they have more card combinations to play with, and for myself, I would get that for that alone. The landmarks are an interesting one. Landmarks I'm kind of torn on. I think landmarks add more variability to the experience. I do think they give you another way to approach the puzzle. But most of the landmark cards, I can't say I found that rewarding or that impactful. And they often force you to choose between different things in terms of the way you're scoring. Like, sure, you can now get points for having different split up water regions, but you can also get points by just having a single water region. So, like, I don't know if it feels that, it gives me flexibility, but it's taking away flexibility because I have to put the landmark on the tile. And so, I don't think I have yet found the landmarks feel like they give me fun, cool, powerful moments. They give me things that I often feel when I play with landmarks that it's giving me point tweaks. Meaning it forces me to examine the game as, okay, great, I can earn 2 points or 1 point, well, 2 points is better. I don't feel I have fun, powerful moments. When I'm playing typical Cascadia, now make no mistake, at any point when you're playing Cascadia, doing the math on what makes more sense point-wise is a factor as you play, but more often than not, when I play typical Cascadia, I just do the thing that seems optimal, and it just makes sense and all comes together and I scored at the end. Playing landmarks is the one time I find I am frequently counting points. I am frequently doing this versus that. Well, this is worth an extra point, so I'll do that. And while that, from a pure strategy sense, it works, I find from a fun sense, it takes me a little bit out of the experience. I feel like as I'm playing, I'm trying to count instead of just playing what makes sense. And I don't have a firm answer as to why that is. All I can say is it happens with landmarks in a way that has never happened with anything else in Cascadia. I think the landmarks almost force me to choose between different things, and those different things often feel like choosing between 1 point or 2 points, and then just doing the math that 2 points is better. And so the landmarks, I like them for the variability that they give to the experience, but I don't know if I like them outside of the variability they give to the experience. Meaning in and of themselves, I don't think landmarks are the way I'd play the game. But I play Cascadia enough that I appreciate having more ways to play the game, and I very strongly appreciate having more challenges and more solo challenges to go through because I love the solo mode of Cascadia. I love multiplayer Cascadia more, but I love playing Cascadia solo as well, and so more content in that sense is a good thing. And so overall, while I am very happy with this expansion and the variability it gives me, I would say that for me, Cascadia Landmarks, the very namesake of what the expansion is probably the area I was most disappointed in. I was excited to play it until I actually started playing with it, and then I realized that it was fine, but not necessarily a smashing it out of the park hit. So, kind of mixed on the actual thing the expansion is named for itself. As far as final thoughts on Cascadia Landmarks, I don't think Cascadia Landmarks strongly improves my experience or detracts from my experience of Cascadia. I still love Cascadia. Cascadia is a 5 out of 5 for me. It's a game I've played so often. I play it solo, I play with other players, I think it works well at different skill levels, it's easy to table, it gives you challenges. There's so much going on in Cascadia, I think it's a phenomenal experience. Cascadia Landmarks does not take it down a notch, nor is it an expansion I'm getting rid of. Sometimes an expansion can actually be a bad thing, and I'll actually consider getting rid of expansions. It happens infrequently, but it does happen where if you're not adding value to my experience and I'm not playing with you, why bother owning you? Cascadia Landmarks is an expansion that I will play with, and I'm happy I have it. But I think where I end up with it is I think Cascadia Landmarks is an expansion I would actively recommend against you getting if you are someone who's new to Cascadia. If you're diving into Cascadia for the first time, I would say this expansion is simply not worth it. Do not get it. If anything, it might detract from your experience of how good of a game Cascadia can be. If you're someone who plays Cascadia a medium amount, then I think I'm neutral on the expansion. I think at that point, if you play Cascadia here and there, I think I'm very neutral on it. If somebody gifted it to you, great. Add it into the box, use it, all of that. Would I recommend buying it? I can't say I would. I think the main thing this expansion gives me is variability of the experience. And to me, you get that from the base game to a large extent without having to go out and spend an additional $30 on the expansion. To me, where I do recommend the expansion is for players who, like myself, play Cascadia a lot. If you play Cascadia a lot, the addition of the new cards, the new tiles, the new solo modes, the new experiences, the new challenges, and even the landmarks, they all give you variability. They all give you more ways to explore Cascadia in a system that maybe you 30, 40 plays in, you're starting to wonder, what more can I see in the experience? And to that end, like, I like landmarks enough in the sense that they give me variability that I'm going to continue to mix them into my plays. Not play with them every time, but I'll continue to mix them into my plays and experiences. But I think that that's who I recommend Cascadia Landmarks for. The avid Cascadia player who's looking for more content, more variability, and more of an experience. But I think to anyone else, I'd be either, again, medium or even actively recommending against for new players. That is my review of Cascadia Landmarks. Kind of positive, but also mixed at the same time, if that makes sense. Hopefully you didn't just tune in for that last sentence, because I think the nuance actually matters a lot in this one. But anyways, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe. Oh, and if you want a numerical rating, I mean, this doesn't really change my opinion of Cascadia. So, in terms of Cascadia with or without landmarks is a 5 out of 5 for me. Cascadia Landmarks as an expansion in its own merit in terms of what an expansion should do versus what it does do. I don't really rate expansions that way, but I guess maybe that's an interesting. Ignore my little dilemma at the end of this video as I try to figure out how do you rate an expansion, because in terms of what an expansion is supposed to do, Cascadia Landmarks would not be a 5 out of 5. It would be a 3.5 out of 5, maybe at best. But in terms of Cascadia, the final result, with or without the expansion, still a 5 out of 5. So, do what you want with that information, I guess. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you found this helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.